Giving a Speech, a memoir on the effective use of rhetoric. My memoir takes place in the small school district of Upper Dublin. UD is home to 25,000 or so residents and is roughly 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia and 4.5 hours away from Penn State. I've never moved or lived anywhere else, so Upper Dublin has a special place in my heart. What makes my high school particularly interesting is the intensity of the academics. The staff and the students of Upper Dublin High School have always prided themselves on being a top 20 public school in Pennsylvania. One of the first things that my guidance counselor thought I ought to become involved with were the numerous clubs that our school had to offer. As I entered the cafeteria on the first Friday of freshman year for the club fair, I was simply overwhelmed. As a result of being overweight and having a rather meek personality, I was shy and only attempted to sign up for 2 clubs. I say attempted because of the clubs in question, one was the National Honor Society. At the time, I didn't realize that the society was only open to juniors and seniors with well-established transcripts. I figured I had done well in school up to this point, and probably would have continued to do so. I began to fill out an application eagerly, until I was subsequently scolded by an upperclassman for my stupidity and lack of ability to read the fine print. As stated earlier, I had a rather weak backbone, and this essentially killed any enthusiasm I had for the club fair. I left having successfully signed up for only one club, EEC, or the Environmental Education Club. Though I joined other clubs over the years, I was never more devoted to anything other than our Environmental Education Club. The first meeting had over 160 potential members, making it the largest club in the school at the time. It was extremely tough to be an officer in the club because of the number of people seeking positions. To be an officer was to be among the elite. When elections came around at the end of the year, I submitted an application and gave a small speech. I was not expecting to win a position as a sophomore, but I did want to at least test the waters. At the end of the day, I knew the elections were a popularity contest, and I lost by a huge margin. A slight jump in the story now occurs, and I am a junior. One morning in homeroom, we received letters from the school administration labeled with our names on them. Only about 1/3 of the class actually received them, which struck me and others as odd. Upon opening the envelope, I was greeted with a long-awaited surprise. I had in fact made the GPA requirement as a junior, and I could now apply to be in the National Honor Society. This time, I applied correctly. However, my lack of participation in school activities worried me enough that I began to think I might not be accepted. And so, upon completion, I placed my application in the room of the NHS advisor and hoped for the best. 2 weeks later, to my surprise and excitement, I was accepted to the National Honor Society, having barely made the activities requirement. As a junior and a new member of the academic elite, I found myself with a highly boosted confidence. I had always wanted to be a leader in my interests and among my peers. The scholastic environment that the NHS was infused with provided a perfect base for my campaign. The advisor, Mr. Greenberg, had been very clear that the speeches were not to be particularly long or funny, which I believed was my greatest advantage. People knew I was smart and knew how to get work done. That was my credibility, my ethos. I chose to run for the position of secretary, one of 4 executive board positions. As a candidate for the executive board, we were given a strict time limit of 1 minute and 30 seconds to get our point across, after which we would simply be cut off. When election day came, I knew my competition would be fierce, but I had certain distinct advantages. I was the only guy running against 3 girls who essentially all had the same voter base. In my mind, all I had to do was deliver my speech without any major mess-ups. Easier said than done. With a stomach full of butterflies and palms sweaty enough to have been mistaken for the nose of a dog, I found myself taking the podium. And so my speech began. It went very well for the first couple of sentences. I even told a joke, resulting in a sea of laughter. I suddenly found the urge to further explain one of my previous points, and did so with relative grace. It was when I had finished my expose that I found myself lost in my own speech. I began to shake a little and stuttered over a point I had already covered. I thought this was the end. My stuttering had gotten so bad that I decided to stop speaking for a moment. I attempted to collect myself and muttered, "Oh, Jesus." What I had failed to account for was the fact that the mic was on, and instead of muttering the phrase, I projected it to the entire audience. I was stunned. Everyone began to laugh, and my face turned a deep scarlet. I tumbled over the rest of my speech and took a seat defeated. Immediately after my speech, I was able to leave school for a field trip with EEC. I did not want to be around my peers, and being at Robbins Park, teaching middle schoolers about the environment, was my way of quelling the seething embarrassment wrapped in my chest. I took a leap of faith and texted a friend still at school so I could see the election results. To my complete surprise, I had not only won, but won by a landslide. As I thought back, I realized messing up my speech may not have been so large a problem as I thought. In being funny and goofy, I came off as more relatable than the stuck-up girls who ran against me. My mistakes had actually been the most rhetorically useful speech-giving strategy. It then occurred to me for the first time in my life, though cliché, that I had to stop worrying about the small stuff and embrace everything life threw at me, because my biggest blunder had actually been a blessing in disguise. I hope you enjoyed my story, and I'd like to thank you for listening.